6 p.m. The Hendrick entourage is having Gulf shrimp at a restaurant on the Buffalo Bayou, which is along the Galveston River. 7:15 p.m. Gerald's cousin Joe and Larry Thurber are watching the 1994 State of the Union in Thurber's dorm room at Murdo Hall. JR even had Ken on his cell phone to listen to the State of the Union. 7:35 p.m. Meanwhile, in Houston, Jim and his party are watching the State of the Union when Bill Clinton mentioned special interest and taxes. Idiot, Claude said. Tricky Dick, now slick with it. I remember Miss Belcher in Odessa High School history class said that a president who is tricky and slick ain't a good president. You got that right, Jim said. I will drink to that. A voice of reason in the crazy leftist Clinton administration. Most of January 26th, the morning of January 26th passed quietly. At 11:25 a.m. at the Spirit Club, JR is attending the Wednesday morning devotional with a sermon by Dr. Brenda Malky, professor of speech communication at Lubbock University College, who gave a speech about the Book of Mormon. 2:05 p.m. At the Center for Public Affairs, JR is writing an objective piece on the Texas Robin Hood Act, enacted in 1993. He did a phone interview with Dr. Randy Ground and with Dr. N.D. Pilsner, his new tutor. No surprise to JR, his tutor was for it, but Dr. Wild was against it. 2:20 p.m. The Hendrick party stops at an airport bar in Houston. The meeting of the Texas Railroad Commission was a success. They have a 2-day combined set of meetings next week. The second with the commission itself, and the third one was to be with the governor in Austin, Texas. 4 p.m. The Hendrick Party board the private jet that would take them from Houston to Midland International Airport. At 4:25 a.m., the plane bearing the Hendrick Party departs from Houston Hobby Airport bound for Midland International Airport. After being in Houston for 2 days, Jim is ready to be back home. He knows any day he could be called to Washington, D.C. to begin his duties. (6 p.m.) The Hendrick plane lands in Midland, and the Hendrick party disembark. Claude says he'll take Becky back to her apartment and then go home himself. Jim said they'd be in touch tomorrow to evaluate a rig in Colorado City. Meanwhile, in Lubbock, JR is having dinner at the Spirit Club. Even invited in Jennifer Bowers to join him. After dinner, would be the evening devotional at 7. 7:25 p.m. Jared and Jennifer are at the Wednesday night devotional at the Spirit Club. Bishop John Moskowitz delivered a stirring message on the priesthood of Christ, citing 1 Peter 5. 8:30 p.m. Jared is in his dorm room listening to a tape of the Blake Carter show when this pronouncement came in. If you watched President Clinton's State of the Union address last night, you probably were in for one hell of a disappointment. More talk was done about health care. It seemed that any other topic in Clinton's health care plan may work well within the halls, but it won't work in the halls of academia. But what it won't work for someone who graduated from Virginia Wesleyan University and received honors in ROTC throughout high school and college. Clinton is a disgrace as Commander-in-Chief. And given the right time, I will interview one of his appointments who might attest to that. In this, JR knew Blake Carter was talking about his father. 3 a.m. at the ranch in his hoodie coat. Kyle triggers the milk machines to milk the cattle. He will be leaving at 5:30 a.m. 5:31 a.m. to make it just in time for the cattle auction in Colorado City. 5:10 a.m. Jared wakes up, hurries up and puts on his swim trunks and jersey, and goes to the Sibley to swim with Rand and Charie Nation. And Charie Nation. 5:30 a.m. At the Sibley, Jared is swimming with Charie Nation. You think I in the sack? Charlie said. Man, that's really crude, Jared said. I don't believe in sex before marriage. You loser. Granddad taught me. That's the problem. You're a wuss. You're a wuss, not a man. Shut up, Charlie. Granddad would belt you for talking crap like that. You're such a loser, Charlie said, walking away. 6:10 a.m. JR is at the Spirit Club having cinnamon rolls. He is sitting between Alex Portalis and C.B. Coleman. He decides against having breakfast with Charlie because of their argument over Jennifer. No loss. Clyde Ingersoll is the professor of advertising from Odessa University College. Spoke at the breakfast about humility and submission. 7:30 a.m. At the ranch, Jim and Claude load up the truck to drive to an oil rig in Colorado City. 8 a.m. Jerry is at Holden Chapel, Dr. Wild's government class when he opens up his lecture. This morning, we're going to be investigating the inner trappings and fundamentals of Congress. An old adage says, Americans don't like Congress, but they love their congressmen. Let's investigate, shall we? 9 a.m. In Midland, Thomas escorts Elizabeth into the oncology center and the chemotherapy room. Elizabeth is quickly laid on the bed and an IV inserted into her arm for immunotherapy. 9:30 a.m. Jim and Claude inspect the oil rig in Colorado City, Texas. Problem: the crown block was ineffective. So Claude has Carlos Iglesias, one of the junior supervisors, set up a new crown block. The order was it had to be in place by 3 p.m. before he and Jim returned back to the ranch. 11:30 a.m. At the Wiggins house dining hall, JR is having chicken enchiladas with Charie Nation. Look, man, I'm sorry, Charlie said, but I'm a sexual being, insatiable, and I like my women. JR cut him off. Charlie, I really don't want to hear it. As a Christian, I saved myself for marriage. That's not what your father... JR shifted. My father was beaten the crap out of by my granddad for womanizing. Just try to get past first base, Charlie said. Brad will never satisfy Karen Crider. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Betsy is watching Days of Our Lives. She is preparing a cheeseburger dinner for when the family gets back home. She thinks about the quiet weekend on the ranch, and then their flight to Austin, where they would be gone for 3 days. Meanwhile, during chemotherapy, Elizabeth is also watching Days of Our Lives. She thinks about her husband 28 years ago, raising Cain because Betsy wanted to marry Jim Hendrick. Betsy was fresh out of college by correspondence, and so her husband decided to send her away again. 3 p.m. At the Center for Public Affairs, JR is writing a fact sheet about accommodations for international disabled students. He has one more hour before he can get off work. About 10 p.m. Five p.m. Charie Nation brought in some Kentucky Fried Chicken to JR's room, and they hung out listening to the Blake Carter show. I'm sorry about my cousin Charlie, JR, Klein said. My dad says it's Uncle John's fault. He's so hypersexual. Mommy issues, JR said. "7 p.m. JR is at the home group Bible study, and it was a good time for all. Brad insisted on bringing him to the Bible study. They studied Dr. Charles Stanley, How to Listen to God, once again. 9 p.m. JR is back in his dorm room. Kevin McDonald came back in from a church Bible study.